Our second lesson is artists use texture to create a mood. And the additional standards for this lesson are: explain how artists use their work to share experiences and communicate ideas. Our Common Core standard is describe key ideas or details from information presented verbally. The vocabulary is texture, which is the way things feel when we touch them. Outline, which means to trace the parts of a drawing. Colored pencil. Shade, which is the darker version of colors. And tint, which is the lighter version of colors. First, we talk about the things that we feel, the textures, and we generate a list of textures: fuzzy, soft, prickly, rough, smooth. Then I demonstrate texture. We put this in our art journal. We title it Texture. And we're just going to make some examples of textures we can use lines to make. So maybe we'll make a little cactus. And I show them how to lift their pens or pencils as they're making their textures. And that will give them a little more pointed effect. So we get our prickly cactus. We're not going to overdo this. And then I show them how to create a fish texture, which is scaly. And we make a scalloped line. And each point on the next line will hit the top of the bump on the one before it. And that gives us scaly. So we can finish out that fish very quickly. Okay, and then if we want to make something look furry, we can, I need to put some little lines in there to give his tail some interest. Okay, so then if we want to make something furry, we can just shake our pen. And we can make like a bunny. Maybe just give him a funny little face. Okay. If we want to make something like a bowl of cereal, we can make a bowl and then just make bumps. And that will look like cereal or peas or oatmeal. Then, for our flowers, we just make little scallop lines and put a dot in the middle. We're not going to do too many of these. And then we can just go ahead and put some stems on them, maybe a little bow right here. And we're fine. And we can use this same texture, that scalloped line that looks like a little flower, a little cloud. But we can use that one also to make a bowl of popcorn. Then we can just do grass. Grass is one of those that you start at the bottom and go up and you leave. This could be hair of some sort too, couldn't it? Just make sure you lift your pen at the end and you'll get the points. And then there are different kinds of water. If there's not much wind, we just have little ripples. If there's more wind and it's choppy, then we can use the scalloped lines. And we can get the effect of water. And then, if it's really, really windy, we can make lines that come over and then come down like a C. And we can also make a mace, like a spiky ball, just by putting V's going different directions on it. And, let's see. We can make, we can make a leg. This is a cartoon leg. And we can make just little curly lines, and we make a hairy leg. They think this is terribly funny. Bricks, we can make the texture of bricks by just skipping lines when we're making our vertical lines on it. Oops, missed one. And, of course, we can use wavy lines to make a jellyfish. And if we're going to make, let's say we're going to make an alligator. We won't make his whole thing. If we make the alligator, then we can just kind of make them, to make it rough, if you kind of square it off a little bit, he'll look like he's got more of those rough spots that they have on them. So there's our alligator. And this is a texture. This is a texture that we can make with curved lines, and we just put a curly line over it. And then we turn it upside down, and we put curly lines over it on the other direction. And this makes a great texture. It's really interesting, so I want them to see that so they know they can make up their own textures. Today we're going to look at the work of Tim Burton because he uses a lot of texture. Do you know his name? He grew up in Burbank, which is part of Los Angeles. And he always loved to draw, and he loved scary movies. And he went to art school, and when he got out, he became an animator for Disney. But pretty soon he went out on his own to make his own movies. Let me read you a list of some of his movies. Beetlejuice, Batman, Edward Scissorhands, Batman Returns, Tim Burton's The Nightmare Before Christmas, Batman Forever, Sleepy Hollow, Planet of the Apes, Tim Burton's Corpse Bride, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Alice in Wonderland, and last year he made Frankenweenie. Now you know who he is. This is the entrance he made to the exhibition of his work at the museum. And look at the entrance. It has a lot of teeth, and the texture up here is made from dead branches. Let's take a look at some of his work. This is his version of Romeo and Juliet. Which textures do you see? How about this one? Do you recognize that texture? That's one I showed you. And look what's coming out of his mouth. What's happening here? Where do you see texture? Where else? Yes, even the flames from their jet plaques have texture. Did you notice all the teeth? Tim Burton really likes to put a lot of teeth in all his characters. What's happening in this one? Yes, his shadow's turned into a monster. And look at all the texture, even in the walls and in the street. And his hair. Which textures do you see here? Don't forget smooth. This one has a lot of smooth texture, doesn't it? This one comes from the expression we have, somebody has a big head. That means they think a lot of themselves. So this guy has all these legs and 4 of them are worshiping him, and the other one is taking his picture like paparazzi. Look at this little alien. Notice all the texture that he put on the body, and then look how he made his legs and arms. Just a scribbly line going around and around and around and around. And what do you see here? It's a cross between an elephant and a lion, I guess. But where do you see texture? great. Want to try some of your own now? Good. As we're passing the paper, I let the students know that they're going to be making a creature all their own, and they need to use 5 different textures. Not what texture 5 times, but 5 different textures in making their creature. And I hope they're inspired. One thing about this is they don't have to know how to draw, so they feel like they can just dive in and do it. And if some of them are feeling shy about getting started, I usually tell them just to make some sort of scribble with their eyes closed and then see what they can make out of it. And if they're disappointed in that, they can always flip their paper over to the second chance side and try again. So a scribble might look like this. And then we look at it and we go, oh, okay, what does that look like? I see this as a big mouth of some sort. Maybe we'll put some teeth in it. And let's see, how about some big eyes up here? Okay, then maybe, oh, it's looking a little fishy, isn't it? Well, we could always put fins on it. And then, well, you know, to make it different, we could put wheels on it. Maybe it travels around on wheels. Maybe we'd have another wheel showing over here and one back here. And then, once you get a creature, all you have to do is start adding texture. So it's as simple as that. Then I just put some samples on the board so that they can see anything goes and they can use any idea that they have. So we look through these and then they start to really relax and become very creative, and you would not recognize any of mine in theirs. So we see all of these, and the children's are really, really great when they finish. And I do have to go around and count textures with them, but that part they seem to accept really well because they like the way the textures look in the drawings. So everybody makes one, and once they've finished theirs, or finished drawing, then they trace it. They outline it with black felt tip pen. Once the first person has finished outlining, I stop everybody and start showing them how to use colored pencils for other than just coloring in like crayons. So, let's say I wanted to make the body green. I would probably start out on the edge and just quickly put some green in. And then, to make my texture stand out, I probably would take another green and go next to my outline and get that going so it would stand out. I'll finish that later. And then when I'm coming down here, I want it to start looking like it's going into shadow, because it is. It's going under his tummy. So I'm going to take another green and go over that lightly so we can get that effect. And then when I get down here under his tummy, I can go ahead and put this green in. And even take a darker green and go under the bottom. What I'm doing is obviously shading, and that's one thing I want to start introducing them to, is getting some shading into their drawings to give it more three-dimensionality. Excuse me. So we can see here how we're looking, and if I make this a little darker, and keep this a little lighter, it's even going to look more like this is going up and over and it's catching more light. So these are just simple ways to use colored pencils, but it does add to the piece. Now, in some areas, you want to make sure that they press down and make them aware that they can have a light color, or they can push down and get something much more dramatic. They're going to have to go to the pencil sharpener a lot more often. However, we can accommodate that, and then they can lighten up when they get up on the top where there would be a highlight. So I talk to them about highlights and shadows and how to blend it in so they can get lighter and darker. And it's not that you can't get this effect with crayon, it's just quite a bit more difficult, and it's a much rougher look. So we can see how I'm going here. And I just demonstrate on mine. I definitely don't finish the whole piece. I'm just using it to demonstrate. So when I want it to look dark inside the mouth, I choose a darker color. Let's see. Maybe I'll go, purple. Purple's good. And then I'm really going to see how dark I can get it with my colored pencil. This one seems not to be cooperating so well. There we go. So, and it broke. So let's go with blue. And I can go ahead and get it nice and dark, so my little eyes that are inside the mouth are going to stand out. And once I get that all done, then I think about what can I do to make the eyes actually stand out. And I'll take suggestions from the children. I'm sure most of them are going to say put some red in it, so I can put some red highlights in the eyes. Whether they look like eyes when we're finished or not, that's not so important. It's that we have something in there and it has texture. So that makes things stand out. So we want to understand that bright colors make things stand out also. So we can do that with colored pencils. We can also talk to them about complementary colors, and one way to teach that, most children do not have a color wheel inside their head. You can't say they're opposites on the color wheel because that means nothing to them. But most of them do know the primary colors. So we go red, yellow, and blue, and we want to know the complement. For instance, if I want to know the complement of blue, I just mix the other two primary colors. So I mix red and yellow, I get orange, complement of blue. If I want the complement of red, I mix the other two complementary colors. That's blue and yellow, and I get green. If I wanted to know the complementary color of orange, I would think, okay, which two colors make orange? Red and yellow. Which complementary color is left? Blue. So blue would be the complementary color of orange. So I can teach them that fairly quickly, and they get it, and they understand that complementary colors really make each other look brighter next to each other. So you can see that with the blue and the orange here. Once they have finished, then they take their art journal out and they give their creature a name and they write a descriptive paragraph about it with texture words, talking about the 5 textures that they've used and any colors, anything else they want to. Some of them really like to write. And that's it for this lesson.